Not sure if it's gagging or choking? Paramedic Mum Eliza joins us to cut through the noise around baby safety, breaks through the TikTok hype, and helps you stop second guessing. Please join us to hear the most important message through this whole episode, which is trust your gut.
Hi, I'm Britt.
And I'm Amy, and welcome to the Every Season podcast.
We're here for a fun time, not a long time.
Hopefully we're here for a bit of a long time. Hey Britt,
Hey, Ames.
would you say you need some assistance when it comes to being more aware of your body?
Why? What have you got?
Well, you can download our free 7-step female body awareness kit and see if it helps
Sweet, where?
in the show notes and on our website.
Also, in order for us to be here for a long time,
Please subscribe to our podcast. Tell us, what season are you currently in at the moment?
Oh, I am in the little bit of everything season. I am in the juggle with absolutely no balance in anything season. I'm, being a mum, I've got a little 2.5-year-old, I've found my feet in that, but obviously we've gone from being a baby to being a toddler now, so that's a whole different ball game. So I'm in that season of being a toddler mum who's got a very active little boy who just loves to run and play and, do all the fun sort of things. And then I've gone back to work being a paramedic on the road, so I'm trying to balance that, and I didn't feel busy enough, and I'm now going to be working a couple of months full time as well. And then I'm also trying to juggle my own business of Baby Safe Basics. So I run workshops teaching families first aid. So I am trying to juggle all those things. So I would say the season of unbalanced chaos that is beautiful, busy, and lots of fun.
Oh my god, I love that. That is the best.
So obviously
That was a
you've
really
got
long answer.
you've got a lot to juggle for sure. So what made you think, being a paramedic is obviously like a real hard job. Then you've got a 2.5-year-old, like you said. What made you take us on the journey of what made you go down the track of creating Baby Safe Basics?
Oh my God, I don't know. I wish I could take myself back to being 6 months postpartum and be like, don't do it.
I had the same conversation with someone about the same conversation to myself this morning, being like, why? Why?
I think that you just have these big, beautiful ideas, and you're like you're like me, Amy, and you're like, I just want to help so many people, and you feel like you can, but then, you don't understand that a year and a half down the track, you have so much of yourself that you need to invest and you need to give to whatever you're doing. So yeah, 6 months postpartum, we were doing a parents group run through the council with my son, and we started getting to the age of starting solids, and just through lots of conversations with them and friends and whatnot, I was finding that everyone had this really huge fear heading into solids of choking, and that was not something that had crossed my mind, to be honest, heading into solids. And I was like, whoa, this is a real thing that people are really terrified about. And then the more conversations I had, obviously your phone is listening, and then the algorithm done us a dirty, and I'm just scrolling Instagram and TikTok, and I'm getting videos of kids choking, starting food, and then I was like, whoa, this is if I'm confronted by this, yeah, I can't imagine how people with no medical experience or feeding a baby for the first time, it's such a massive responsibility, and it's huge. Feeding a human person for the first time ever is such a weird thing to get your head around. And then understanding how to do that safely and do it well, and are you
what
doing
types
enough?
of food and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so I think it was from then that I was like, all right, I feel like this is a really good way to start having conversations with people about this sort of thing. And there's no good in saying to people you don't need to be worried about choking. That's incredibly unhelpful. You need to show people of okay, well, this is how we serve babies food safely. This is what we can do to make mealtimes really fun and enjoyable. And, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be overshadowed by this huge stress of choking, or, they're going to have an allergic reaction or any of those sorts of things. And so it just sort of came from there. And I ended up running a little first aid workshop as a tester thing for my council run parents group. And it was just from there that I was like, cool, okay, that was really fun. I'm going to continue to do this. I really loved it. I like look at running first aid workshops for families as though like you wrap them up in a really big cuddle and you're like, okay, this is the information you need to know, but like this is just a game plan to fall back on. But you know, statistically, most children are going to be totally fine. If they get unwell, they're going to get help and they're going to get better. Same with choking. Like it's a very, very uncommon thing that happens with kids, but you open Instagram and it'll make you think like every child that starts eating food is going to have a choking episode, and it's just not the case. So I sort of just wanted to bring a bit of like, you know, realistic statistics to parents, and also like the information that they need to start solids and enjoy it. So yeah, that's where it all came from. 6 months postpartum, because I wasn't busy enough apparently.
Because your brain, like you feel like you need to use your brain at that point, don't you? At 6 months postpartum.
Yeah, exactly. And I was probably craving that, like, yeah, needing to be stimulated a little bit more. And you know, that is, if I don't want people to feel as though if they're 6 months postpartum and they're not feeling like the need to be stimulated, please sit with that. That is totally fine. Would not recommend going and starting a business at 6 months postpartum. That's not what I'm saying. My brain obviously worked a little bit differently to, yeah, what others
But
do.
but I think it comes into, like you said, Liz, like who you are as an individual. You want to help people, and you saw a gap of knowledge and a gap in the market. Do you know what I mean? And I think like that's when, I guess, when you're that way inclined, you see that, and you see that people need help. You automatically go, well, I can give this knowledge. I can give this to people. You know.
Yeah, and it was more so like giving back the confidence into parents. Like being a first time parent is overwhelming as it is. Like you're learning everything, you're learning to, you know, you're getting to know your baby, you're bonding with them, and you're learning new things as you go, and everything is constantly changing. Like you get your head around feeding, and then you might get your head around like a routine if that suits you. And then all of a sudden you're like, you've got to fit food into there and pack food for them to go out, and it just becomes this whole massive thing that is just like constantly adding to the mental load. So I really wanted to like instill confidence back into parents to be like, you actually don't, like the fears of your little one getting unwell or choking, whatever it might be, it doesn't need to overshadow that enjoyment of having a baby. You know what I mean? I feel like there's just so much fear mongering about little ones getting unwell or, you know, things happening to them that you sort of just forget to enjoy it all. And that's what I wanted to give to parents is like, yeah, you give you the information that you need to be able to take care of your little one when feeding them, or, you know, when they get unwell or they hurt themselves, but also being, you know, knowing that these things are very unlikely. These are the rare things we see in little ones.
You're so right, Eliza, because I remember just off my experience coming home, and I was quite a confident person, like having a baby, like being an auntie, looking after them. I had no issue at all. But as soon as I got home, and it was a couple nights in, he actually got a little bit sick. And I thought like this overwhelming feeling come over me. And I was like, shit, this is now my responsibility. Like I have to keep this little one going. Like his life depends on me and my husband, like of what actions we take going forward. And it gave me a little bit of anxiety, and I'm thinking, can I do this? And I remember speaking to one of my girlfriends at the time. I'm like, I had so much confidence until this moment. And then the next time he got sick, and then the next steps, like you said, when I come off breastfeeding and all of those kind of things that you have to do along the way is really stressful. So I think what you're doing and what you have set up is definitely needed out there, because once you do those, like, is it 6 weeks that you go to the midwife? Is it something like that? Then you're left to kind of just figure out things on your own. So I think it's definitely important what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the health anxiety, like I'm sure a lot of mums will relate, but like so many parents will say that they had no health anxiety before they became a parent, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know, you're worried, like somebody will cough near you in a cafe and you're like, oh my God, get away. Like you become really, really overwhelmed with just normal things. And I think that can really easily like send you into a spiral of getting into that worst case scenario mindset. And that's what I like always try and say to parents, like in workshops, I say like, you know, try not to fall into that worst case scenario, because think about what is the most probable outcome here. The most probable outcome is that they are going to be totally fine. And, you know, like we need to do X, Y, and Z to try and help them and whatnot. Or, you know, they might need to go to the hospital and get some help. Don't try and think about what is possible, because if you start thinking about what is possible and, you know, using Dr. Google at 2 a.m., then all of a sudden you're in a rabbit hole of like okay, now you've convinced yourself that they've got the worst case thing, and like that just is going to compile in that
Which
health
happens,
anxiety.
doesn't it? Like the amount of times I've
all the
Dr.
time.
Googled, like all
Yeah.
the time, and multiple times throughout the day when you're home alone with your baby.
I'm even guilty for it. I've done it to myself multiple times. Like, you say to people, like, you give them this advice, and then I'm like, why do I have a headache for 2 days? And it's like brain tumor, and I'm like, oh my god, do I have a brain tumor? No, I don't.
Oh, do you know nowadays ChatGPT or Grok, which is like Elon Musk's like the X thing, has like a doctor that talk like a specific like
Really?
specific like voice, and specializes in like is essentially like a doctor. It always says, you know, go seek professional like advice. But yeah, it is. It's scary. I think like Liz, as you mentioned before, for yourself until the algorithms hit, you know, it was something that, you know, I can personally can't imagine, but, you know, being a new parent, this, like you said, you both said, there's so much going on. But you specifically didn't really kind of feel too overwhelmed when it came to baby first aid and starting solids. Why do you think that is such an area where mums and also dads get quite overwhelmed, especially nowadays? But I don't know if it's nowadays, so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see like what my mum thinks about this conversation.
Yeah.
But
It's definitely nowadays. Like, some of the things I talk to my mum about, and like this fear of choking and all those sorts of things, like she was just like, what? Like that?
Yeah, really?
We just did not think about that, like when they were raising kids. And it's like a couple of things. I think like having a baby in general, like you just, they are so small, they feel incredibly vulnerable, and you feel as though you've got this massive responsibility, as you said, Britt, to just keep them alive. And I think when you, like, that responsibility can very quickly like just feel enormous, and that's where like you can sort of start to spiral and be like, am I doing enough? Are they eating enough? Are they having enough wet nappies? Like, what if they get sick? What am I going to do? All those sorts of things. But I definitely think it's one of those cases of like, you know, knowledge is power to a certain degree. And then it becomes like, you know, we just don't need to be filling people with, especially new parents who are already incredibly vulnerable because of the phase of life they're in, or the season. You don't need to be filling them with, you know, scary videos on Instagram or TikTok. Like, that's not what we need. We need to be giving parents information in a really warm way, like still being real, but in a warm way that is not going to terrify the crap out of them, like of having a baby, because I feel as though that is doing a little bit more damage. Is because like parents are really worried about when their little one's got a fever, that they're, you know, something awful's going to happen to them. And it's like, well, no, that, you know, if there is a certain video, or like, you know, your mum's sister's cousin's stepsister's daughter has told you of this one person that one awful thing happened to, it's like, yeah, but look at all the other kids that had that same thing, but that didn't happen to them. That wasn't the outcome for them. So it's like people, when they share their birth stories, it's like when anyone's pregnant, you're like, you know what? I don't need to hear your birth story. Like,
yeah,
go, like, I just don't need
good
to
on
hear
you,
that.
but don't give me that energy.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
also because everyone's pregnancy birth story is so different. So you don't want to go in with like this preconceived idea. It's like a birth plan. To be honest, I think a birth plan is just scary, because if you have a plan and you're a control freak, okay, like if you're going to go in thinking like, I'm going to have that birth plan, but you're not. And then that's what the scariest thing is.
Yeah, but it's also like when your little one has been unwell, and they're like, oh, I know someone that had this, and like this awful thing happened to them, and you're like, that's not helpful. Like, tell me what I need to know to look for and get them help, but I don't need to know of this awful outcome that happened to this one child in, you know, how many other children were totally fine with the same thing. It's the education behind it is amazing. I think there's always like we can, you know, how to safely, times have changed so much in like putting babies to bed safely, you know, in terms of safe sleep and the guidelines around that. Like, they didn't have that when in our parents' generation or the generation before, and so many things to do with first aid are completely different. And obviously these new guidelines have come into place because awful things have happened to children. That's what we need to know about. We need to know about the safe guidelines. We don't need to know about the awful stories that happened to them. I think that sometimes it's not equal balance between like the education point and also the fear mongering that can come with it. And something I always like, this is my favorite quote to like try and remind parents, is that like if kids were as vulnerable and susceptible to things as we were made to believe, our human race would not have survived this long. Like
Yeah,
kids
that's
are
so true.
yeah, kids are incredibly resilient, even babies. Like, of course, we need some education to know how to take care of them when they're unwell and recognize that things are, not going too well with them and get them help and all those sorts of things. But they are very resilient. They have incredible survival instincts.
What would you say is the most common mistake or myth that starting solids?
That choking's common. Like, choking is incredibly uncommon. In 8.5 years I've been a paramedic, I've never been to a child choking. Like, it's not something
Really?
common, it's not something that we see every day. But you compare that to the statistics of adults having choking episodes, and it is in the thousands. Like, it's massive.
Really?
Yeah, more adults choke than kids, and it's because like we have the worst eating habits. Like, we are constantly like
swallow it.
socializing and eating, and and you're talking and laughing, or like people are like running for trains and trying to eat their breakfast at the same time. And you're like, that increases the chance of a choking episode.
I've never
Yeah.
thought about it like that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like when Mia, we did our episode with Mia, and she was like, technically the stats say that you have to chew 30 times before you swallow. Like, no
Yeah.
wonder we choke more.
Yeah, I inhale
Yeah.
food. Have you choked, Amy?
Have I choked? No. I've seen my mum's choked, I think, before.
Oh, it's horrible. I've choked,
Yeah.
and I was like, and then like what's it called? The Heimlich.
Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah, so then
that
someone
the-
tried to do that on
back?
me, and it just wouldn't.
No, that's
it
like
wouldn't-
Oh,
it wouldn't work, and then it just slowly eventually slid down. It was horrible. It was
Thank
so
you
horrible.
for giving everyone your choking experience.
But it's
That is not what we're trying to do.
fear. It's a real fear. However, I remember, I do remember when I was giving Billy solids and thinking, okay, is that choking? But it wasn't. It was just like a gag reflex. So do you reckon some parents mistake that for choking?
I think sometimes they might think they're choking and really they're just having a gagging episode. I feel like now the more videos we see of little ones gagging, they're starting to easily tell the difference between what is gagging and what is choking. And I think that's where learning about solids before you jump in is going to take away that anxiety of like sitting there on the edge of their high chair being like, are they gagging? Are they choking? Like, do I need to help them? And like having that panic. I think if you like are comfortable knowing the difference and you can sort of sit back a little bit and be like, okay, this is the gagging episode, we're safe here. I think now, like with a lot more education, like parents are really good at knowing the difference between gagging and choking. But because like people don't commonly call ambulances for even choking episodes. So I feel as though like kids will have a gagging episode. And when they have a
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but don't forget about us. Please subscribe.
Okay, back to the episode.
gagging episode, they typically will recover really quickly from it. So it's not something that you're very likely to even have an opportunity to pick your phone up and call the ambulance because it's likely they've cleared it out themselves. Whereas choking it's very obvious. And yeah, just on like why adults choke like far more commonly than little ones is because we have the worst eating habits, but we're also really good with kids of like knowing what is safe to feed them, how to feed them, and like how to create that safe feeding environment. And it's honestly everything the opposite of how we eat as adults. Like, we eat like reclined watching Netflix on the couch and we're like not concentrating on our food, but we're like having a conversation with somebody at the same time. Like, they're all things that we don't do with kids because we know that they're, increasing the risk of a choking episode. We have kids sitting up, we have them like not distracted, we have them focused on what they're doing. So everything that we do as adults, we do the opposite for kids to try and reduce the risk of a choking episode.
You're actually so right. Like, I've never thought about it before, but like it is. We're just like everything that you're actually doing, which is where when we look at like, our parents' generation, the generation before, it's like, are we overcomplicating everything? Do you know what I mean? Like obviously merit, like you said, lies. We've got safety mechanisms in place and courses and everything like that because certain things have happened. And knowledge is power, obviously. But like sometimes you kind of think, can I just clarify as well with these algorithms? So are you telling me that there's videos that people post of their kids doing, or like they're talking to the camera about their kid being ill or like how? What
Yeah, there's there's
Really?
lots just of there's videos of kids having choking episodes.
On camera?
Tried to give advice, we'll just put really traumatic things on TikTok of something's happened to their child, and they might have a camera in their house and they've videoed it, and that's they're showing that, which is just oh my god, we're using it as the opposite of a highlight reel now, and now we're trauma dumping for everyone else to have this fear that they didn't already have, but they've watched this TikTok and now they're wow, now I'm super super terrified of this one thing because of one TikTok I watched. Yeah, it's crazy. It's yep, the education behind it is amazing, but let's stop terrifying parents.
100%. What, I guess, looking at the, like you said, terrifying parents, what's one key safety tip that I guess you provide parents throughout your workshops?
For everything is to just lean into your child and to trust your instincts. We all get that gut feeling when we meet somebody for the first time and something feels really off, or a situation feels really sketchy, or all the time I'll walk into a job and I'll just be oh no, I'm getting a weird feeling here, and you just lean into your gut that it's your body's way of trying to tell you something, and it's telling you you need to pay closer attention to what they're doing. So that's my biggest thing that I always say to parents is yes, you absolutely need to know how to do CPR and how to manage choking and red flags in little ones, but above all that is to trust that gut instinct. If it's telling you, or if you're getting that feeling that something's not quite right, lean into it. It's your body telling you incredible things, and it's just that you need to tune into what your baby's doing, because the biggest thing with kids that we want to know is we want to pick up if they're deteriorating really early, because early recognition of those things leads to early interventions, which means to better outcomes, and that's what we want to figure out. But yeah, just always trusting your gut, and also leaning into your little one, and listening to them, and being guided by them. Fevers really terrify parents commonly, when a little one will have a really high fever, and it's well, all that number on that thermometer is telling us that they're hot. Have a look at your baby, or have a look at your child, and treat them and look at them and how they're going. If they've got a really high fever but they're still feeding really well, and they're somewhat comfortable, and you're able to console them, and they're doing all their normal things, that's amazing. The number on the thermometer might tell you something totally different, but look at the child. So I think always to lean in and trust your gut. There's nothing stronger than a mum's intuition. It is honestly just insane. You will know, I say to parents all the time, you will know before you even take their temperature, more than likely, that they've got a fever, and it's just based off that you know them better than anyone else, and you will pick up very quickly their slightest change in behavior, and you'll be oh, this is weird, what's going on? Oh, I reckon you've got a fever, and then you'll take their temperature and you'll be yeah, ding ding ding, got a fever.
Ding ding ding. I love that.
But it's just yeah, I think that, but that also coming back to be able to trust your instincts, and tune into your baby, and see what they're trying to tell you or what they're trying to show you. People don't feel confident to do that because they've, whether, it's the algorithm, or they've heard someone's awful story, or they just need to be given that confidence to be able to trust that gut instinct. Because I feel so many people will be I don't want to waste anyone's time. People call ambulances all the time. The first thing they say to us is I'm so sorry to waste your time. And I'm you're not wasting our time. If you're worried about your child, we're here. You know them better than anyone else. I'm more than happy to check them out, because if you're getting a gut feeling that something's not quite right with them, we're taking that and we're trusting that gut instinct, and we're going to check them out and try and understand why you're getting that gut feeling. If we come to the conclusion that we can't find anything that's wrong with them, that is the best possible outcome. We never want parents not to trust their gut instincts because they're worried about wasting people's time, or they're worried that they're going to be judged for, being an anxious new parent, any of those sorts of things. That is just, yeah. And it also comes back to being able to trust that gut instinct, and having the confidence to be able to, try and advocate for a little one as well if you needed to. Like if you're having that gut feeling that something's not quite right with them, and you know them better than anyone else, and you're trusting that their behavior is totally off, then you can advocate that to other people and advocate that to healthcare professionals. And we take it really seriously. When parents are worried, we're worried. I've never been like, I might walk in and like see a child and I'll be like, okay, you look really well, and then the parent will tell me the story of what's happened, and they're really distressed by it, and I'm like, I wasn't worried 10 seconds ago, and now I'm really worried.
Yeah,
you're so right. Like, I remember feeling pressure of Billy was vomiting, like, let's say 5 days in a row, and I'm like, I've got to take him into hospital. So I end up taking him. But by the time I got there, he stopped doing everything. And I was like, no. Like, you have got to check him out. But I felt like I was a burden. Like, I felt like I shouldn't have been there. But, like, I feel like so many mums would feel what you're describing. Definitely.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's also really good to have the knowledge of like red flags, or like knowing when, other symptoms as well as having a fever or something for concern. Because then you go to the hospital, or you call an ambulance, or you head to the doctor, whatever you're going to do, and you say like, okay, well, they've had a fever for 3 days, but they're also not feeding well. They've also got reduced wet nappies, and now they're quite lethargic. And all of a sudden now you're like, okay, well, I've got this, I'm showing them that I know what I'm doing, and this is why I'm worried, rather than, having that concern of feeling that you're going to be a burden. Like, you're definitely not a burden at all. It's more so whether, like, it's worth your time. Like, is it worth going to the hospital? But if you know that you've got these, they're
the red flags,
presenting with, red flags, or just, like, things that for concern that, they could deteriorate really quickly, you're already going to be going there, and you're not wasting anyone's time, because you know that that's where they need to be.
Oh, I love that. I love what you're doing, Eliza. But, like, can you tell us what is the most rewarding part of creating this course? What has been the most rewarding part?
The Starting Solids course, I think, like, getting pictures from parents of like their little ones enjoying solids, and then you like say to them, and they're like, I'm like, how are you feeling though? Like, your baby looks like they're freaking frothing sweet potato or steak or whatever it is, but I'm like, how are you feeling actually feeding them? And like, just getting back the feedback of people saying like, I feel really good, like I can sit back when they're having a gagging episode and like give them lots of encouragement and be like, that's it, you're doing all the right things. I'm like, that to me is like the biggest win. You're like, because I really want people to, like, it's a massive milestone that you meet with your baby when they start solids. It's so exciting, but it's often overshadowed by this, overwhelming fear of choking or allergic reactions. So when parents can sit back and say that they're really enjoying solids, and they're, leaning into their baby and trusting them that they're going to figure it out, and, all those sorts of things, that is just what is the most rewarding thing. It is so cool. And just not having that, fear of any of those things going wrong. I think that that's the biggest thing that I've like really loved getting feedback about. And also that it's like backed by evidence, because there's so many things out there of like, I made it with two pediatric dietitians. So they do like the nutrition component and I do the safety component. And I think that also like it's being backed by experts who work in this field is just really reassuring as well.
100%. Well, you guys are specialists, you're the experts, you know what I mean? So like you said, and you've gone through it yourself too, I think, which is something super special as well, Yeah,
exactly. And you're like, I can, from our solids experience that I did with my son, I'm like, I loved it. It was the best. It was messy. It was fun. Like, half of it ended up being fed to our dogs. But yeah, exactly. But you're like, I really enjoyed it. The most thing that I was stressed about was that, like, I wasted all this time because it ended up on the floor. Like, I wasn't stressed sitting on the edge of a high chair being like, is he choking? Is he gagging? Like, I didn't feel any of that. And I also just like, I want parents to have that same experience, because you're like, it's a massive milestone. Like, I really want you to enjoy it as much as you can. And the way that you're going to enjoy it is, as much as we don't want to, we need to face those fears and like learn what choking is, learn how to tell the difference between gagging and choking, like learn how to manage choking if it was to happen, and allergic reactions, and recognize them and what you can do to help them. But yeah.
I love that. What, where to next with Baby Safe Basics? Like, Obviously, you're such a busy woman. You got so much stuff going on, and going back to paramedics full time, at something else. So like, it's not I'm more like intrigued as to like where, I guess where it is now and where you kind of see it going, because like you said, there's such a gap. I mean, I haven't even gone through it myself, and I'm like, I'm just, my brain's now going, oh my God, yeah, she's filling this gap and she's filling this gap and she's helping these people,
I know, it's so cool. I have like so many friends that don't have kids yet, but like follow my Instagram, and they're like, oh my God, just from your video, I know what to do if somebody's choking, or I know that like that tummy looks bad when it's breathing. And I'm like, if you choose to have kids, like, you are just going to bypass all this fear and you're just going to nail it. I'm like, it's so cool. Where to from here? I actually don't know, to be honest. Like, it's one of those really tricky things where I love Baby Safe Basics and I love what we're doing so much, but I also love going to work and being on an ambulance. And like, I feel as though like my work days at work are like so much, which is like crazy to say out loud, but they're a lot less stressful than like running your own business. Like, it's really hard because like there's obviously running your own business, there's the workshops, and like somebody purchasing your solids course and making that is like one very small component of it, and then there's so much background work that goes on, and that's a really time consuming, stressful part of it. But I just love going to work and like, working with somebody and just like talking garbage for the day, and then like just meeting patients and just like getting like comfortable in doing that. I really, really love that as well. So it's this weird juggle of being like, how much does Baby Safe Basics want to grow? Because obviously the more that grows, the less time I'm going to have to be able to work as an ambo. And I don't want that. I really want to stay working as a paramedic. I love it so much. So I don't know, to be honest. You've put me on the spot. I haven't thought about it. I mean, I think about it, but I don't have aspirations for this to be this like massive, to be this massive CEO of like, no, that's not me at all. I don't have any desire to do that. I think that like,
oh God,
it's probably bad. I should probably dream a bit bigger.
But I think
it's
what
not
you're
bad at all.
You're creating a balance of what you like, like you're creating something that is not out there for mums to be able to go and get an awesome course for, and then you're also doing the job you love at the same time. So it's like a perfect balance.
Yeah, it's a lot like motherhood, I reckon, in like the push and the pull, like you're constantly battling between the both. And I think with like Baby Safe Basics, like I'm always like having a push to like, do more and be bigger and all those sorts of things. But then I get pulled back into like, I just want to be a competent paramedic, and I also want to be like, spend as much time with my son and really value those really young years and like be really present with him. But there's always, like I said at the start, I'm in this like unbalanced chaos, beautiful part of life. But the more I give to one component, obviously less time for the others. Yeah. So I'm trying to like just balance between the three of them to make sure that like I'm doing just those three really, really well. Because otherwise it just becomes like, I always wanted to, like in the beginning, I probably didn't think too much about like how hard and how busy it would to be to own your own business. But now that I'm like in it and I'm in it thick, I'm like, wow, like it really is a lot of time consumed in doing all the background stuff. And I just never wanted it to be this thing that felt like it wasn't enjoyable anymore. So I think at the moment, like it's a really enjoyable state, and I don't know like how I grow it, or if it grows or whatever, that I don't want it to ever get to that point where I'm feeling like I'm drowning and I feel as though, I can't keep up with it, or I feel as though like I'm not being a present mum, because that's what's ultimately the most important thing to me, rather than being like some big CEO or anything like that.
Nice. So like I said earlier, I think a lot of mums will benefit from what you're doing and your course. So how do we find you? Give us a little bit of information. Where's your website? What's your Instagram?
So easy. It's just Baby Safe Basics. So that's my Instagram. My website is www.babysafebasics.com.au.
Thank you for giving us the www as well.
That's okay. just in case.
You're me,
case.
baby.
I don't know the
great.
whole thing. Do you want
It's something I would do.
Slash HTTPS or whatever it is. No, I'm fine with you.
Oh,
Some people
God.
are listening to this and they're like, HTTP.
Sure, there probably are people who do that.
But yeah, solids course on there, covering all the nutrition and safety components to completely enjoy the milestone of starting solids. And then, yeah, I run private first aid workshops for families, friends, parents groups in and around Melbourne, which is really cool. So you can find me
Do
on
you
there.
have like, sorry, Liz, are these like, do you have specific dates or times, or are you just kind of, how do you?
I just throw my availability in there and then people just book them. And I do them like they're private workshops rather than public because I feel as though sometimes people like to learn with their own family or their own friends or in the comfort of their own home because that's where they feel comfortable and that's where they feel comfortable asking questions. Like people think that like they'll be like, I've got a really silly question, and I'm like, no single question in parenting is silly. Like there's going to be so many questions. Some of the things that come out of my mouth sometimes I'm like, oh, that sounded dumb, but I'm like, whatever, I want the answer. There's no such thing as a silly
100%.
question. So yeah, I feel as
100%.
though that's where people are most comfortable. So I do them from people's houses, which is really cool. My whole job is just going into strangers' houses and like sitting down and having a conversation in both parts that I do.
Oh, I love that. We'll put that. We'll put all that information in the show notes. And Liz, I think, I generally think like I appreciate where you're coming from with the 5 years. I just think like you're well and truly onto something. You found a gap in a market that's well and truly needed. Like, yeah, I think kudos to you, girl, because like what you've built and your idea and what you're building is just incredible. And however you take it, you take it. But yeah, I think even like I said for myself, you know, the power of knowledge, I think, and the gap that you're providing is just incredible. So kudos to you. That's awesome.
Thanks, sister. It is one of those things that like I wish that it was done in schools of like the amount of times we'll rock up to a job of like something's happened and like everyone's just standing around and no one is doing CPR because nobody knew how to do it or they were scared to jump in. It's just like really terrifying. So it is like such an important thing that I'm like, I just want everyone to know this, whether you've got a kid or not, like you could always help someone. You just never know when something is going to happen.
No, that's been awesome. Well,
Thanks,
Liz.
Eliza.
Howdy, it's us again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Don't forget to download the awareness kit and subscribe to the podcast. Have a fabulous day.